You can almost read it.
Oh.
Send a bag of goodies to every department.
All right, we're gonna get started. The green light's on, so it must be 5 o'clock. Green light. Welcome, everyone. This is a workshop on the Town of Wells Fire Substation Facilities Study. It's just a draft and a preliminary discussion, so.
Yep.
Mike?
Bob and John are back to join us, and a couple of weeks ago, they were here for DPW, Town Hall, Recreation, and our public restrooms. And so this component would be addressing what we would call Substation 2 out by DPW. And looking at that with kind of the request we had of them was to look at it as a facility that could be expanded so that it could hold our Wells EMS service, WEMS, which is currently not part of the town, although we're instrumental to the town's services. And so looking to have WEMS and a level of fire service that could operate out of that facility as we expand our community to the west and the number of calls continue to increase. I'll leave it to you, gentlemen.
All right, well, we're gonna walk through the report and then any questions you'll have. It won't take very long to go through it and welcome any questions, right, John?
Yep. So thanks for having us again. We'll go to the space program. Similar to what we did with the town hall and DPW, we worked with the fire department and WEMS together to figure out what the future space needs were. So what we did was we reviewed the existing substation. The existing substation is just shy of 5,000 square feet. So what we wanted to figure out is what we can do with the building and then see what we needed to do to grow. So we looked at common space, we looked at administration space, we looked at bunk space, we looked at training space. So looking at all of those, what we've determined is the building, all said and done for future growth out of 20 years, is a total of 17,546 square feet, which is roughly a difference of 12,500 square feet. So what that means is that we have 5,000 square feet to play with. We need another 12,000 to make the building whole, to provide all the functions and circulation for the fire and EMS.
So I would just say before we leave that sheet that the growth factor that you see at the bottom, I don't know if you want to put your mouse on it, but it is really needs to be understood that that's based on strictly what the current station is right now. It doesn't include any of the WEMS facilities that are currently housed at a different location. And also, one of the other factors, and correct me if I'm wrong here, John, but is that the current station 2, regardless of WEMS, has other operational needs that aren't there, and I know the chief could address those, but there's spatial needs that should be there that aren't there right now for operational purposes, right, chief? So that growth factor you see is not really kind of what it looks like because it involves a lot of space that isn't there right now, period. It's coming from somewhere else as well, and other operational needs.
Yes, so to elaborate, it's a growth for both fire and EMS.
Right.
Because EMS or WEMS is not part of it right now, but we're looking to combine them together. So the employees have grown slightly, so we're trying to accommodate that space. So as we go through the plans, you'll kind of see the reasonings why. So the next sheet is an existing site plan. What we wanted to do is just identify what's existing, what's new. So the existing driveway primarily stays the same. What we're doing is basically adding on to it so that we can utilize whatever's existing there. We're trying to reduce any redos. And we're trying to maximize the existing conditions as much as possible. So some of the challenges with this site is water. So we would have to do a 30,000 gallon cistern to basically support a fire suppression system. So what we've done is given some examples on the side. These are cisterns that we've done on other projects. So it's basically a big plastic tank in the ground, and that's where we store the water. Some of the new things is a new septic. The existing septic is adjacent to the apparatus where we want to add another apparatus bay. So in order to do that, we need to relocate the septic. There's some existing outbuildings in the back. There's an existing auto impound that looks like it's being used, kind of. We are gonna basically recommend to remove it, so that we have a little more growth and separation.
Yeah, our understanding is that that's not really currently being used, is that correct?
Yeah, we could make accommodations so that
Right,
it doesn't inhibit
somewhere
the
else.
growth of this.
So site plan wise, it's about as simple as possible. We're adding another apron for the new apparatus to the right. So you can see it says new new asphalt. And then on the left, we're adding more parking space for visitors or employees.
But the driveway and the current aprons were not really impacting to save cost.
Any questions so far on site? So the next sheet is identifying the existing footprint and what we're trying to reutilize. So everything in red is gonna be reutilized, so the apparatus basically stays where it is. I think what we're gonna do is basically just do some light modifications like paint. And that's probably about it in there, that's all it really needs. We're gonna reuse the decon, we're gonna reuse the 2 toilet rooms and the shower rooms, the utility and 1 office. We're even gonna repurpose the glass windows at the front so that we can save money as much as possible. The next sheet is identifying some of the demo part of what we need to do to the building, so we're gonna do some light demo of interior walls. And then obviously the one on the right side is we're gonna take down that whole gable wall so that we can add another 2 bays to the apparatus. And then there's just some existing photos just to kind of give content of what we're doing.
John, as you think about the 2 additional bays, is the idea to house 3 ambulances and then some fire apparatus by doing that?
Well, so the apparatus pretty much stays as it is.
Right.
We're having 2 bays. We do have some extra space in the back for trucks, trailers, boats.
But it would give us room for 3 of the ambulances,
Yep.
with 1 maybe
Yes.
housed down at the center station.
Yep, so there always will be 1 at the main station. There'll be 3 at this substation.
Yes,
Is that what it is now? Now, over to you, over to where they have.
Steve, you have 3 or you have 4 down here at
We
your
currently have 3 here and 1.
1 at the substation. We
So-
don't have 1 down at the main station.
Okay.
Right.
What we're trying to do is whatever's at the hospital now is we're bringing it to the substation. So
Okay.
whatever's at the existing headquarters
stays there.
remains as it is.
So on the next plan, you can actually see that, the next sheet, you can see the actual apparatus.
Right, so I'm just, so does that mean there'll be 4 up there then?
There
No.
would be 3 up there and then 1 down at the main station. We would put 1 down there. So you could reduce the response time and the response through our school zones
So we
and all.
don't have one, that's, okay,
We
I
don't.
wasn't clear on that, okay, I was saying, well, wait a minute, you're still losing 1. Okay, all right, I got it.
That's true.
So there's a total of 4 ambulances. 1's at the main station and 3 will be at the substation. Alright. The next sheet is a proposed plan.
Question,
Yes.
is that what's anticipated up through 2045, total
Yes.
4?
Only
Yep.
3? Only 4?
20 years out, we were.
Total 4 for the town,
Right.
but 3 at the substation.
Right, so we have that now, and in 2045, 4 is enough? Is my
It
question.
is-
There's no way to know that,
No
I
way,
think
yeah.
we would just, as we grow, services will come to you to determine whether or not we can do anything differently or need to do anything differently.
Well, the reason I asked the question is we're saying that this is space needs through 2045. And I really wanna know that we're anticipating the space needs in 2045.
So we have 2 bays, we have a double loaded bay
Right.
for ambulance. And we have a single, which then there's another space behind that one, so there is
Correct.
future growth for this facility. Do they need it now? No, but could they use it in the future? Possibly.
Steve, on average, how many ambulances do you have in service right now?
3.
3 typically in
The
service?
4th one is just a spare, just in case we need to put it in service real quick.
Yep, okay.
Does that spare need to be kept undercover at all times?
Oh, yes.
You know this, is about 20 years ago, because that's what you're looking at, 20 years in the future, 20 years ago, how many did you have?
Two,
Two, okay.
So that footage, if you wanna put the mouse on it, John, if you don't mind, in the expansion bays, that footage, as well as the spaces behind the fire apparatus to the left of it, which there's nothing shown in that space, that's what's there now. All that footage is calculated into that summary you saw earlier. It's not in addition to that, it's all included in that footage, just to be clear.
I just want to note that, I don't wanna make it more complicated, but if you were to expand again, typically you're looking for other locations to get better response times. So you wouldn't really wanna continue to keep piling them into one spot.
Yeah, you'd
Right.
want something
Cause we had talked
south.
about that, cause eventually you know where we'd like to go.
I would say this also too, is when we did build both the school through La Valley and the police station, every time we mentioned what's it gonna be like in 20 years, we were told, stop doing that. Because nobody knows, there is no great projection of it, that this was your guys, not me, I didn't make this up. And they told us to stop that kind of thought, because it's just not gonna, you can build extra space, but we have no idea what the world's gonna be in 20 years, we don't know what it's gonna be in 5 years. So we have to, I get space-wise, but we can't predict that we're gonna need 10 ambulances in 2045, or we're only gonna need 2 because things have changed. We can fly you there, right, or whatever the heck it is that's going to happen in the near future, or AI will take over, you know what I mean? It just, they kept telling us, stop doing that. Maybe the guy that was working there then is wrong, but I just remember that conversation a lot. Every time I said it, they're like, stop.
Listen, I mean, beyond 5 or 10 years, the windshield, John knows, gets muddy. However, what you don't wanna have to do, if you can avoid it as a community, we tell this to every community you're working in, is you don't have to come back unless something truly changes and have to do another addition or another thing in 5 or so years. So we feel pretty confident from working with the chiefs and so forth and with Mike that this expansion that we're gonna go through with you, we're not finished yet, should be good for X number of years, you know?
Right.
Who's to say, like you're right, you can be teleported, you know,
Right.
in 20 years, but like in Star Trek, but the point of it is that this facility, as John will walk you through it, in a plan that's up on the screen, has that growth built into it, so.
Yeah, I guess my point would be like, so when we built the elementary, that was a long time ago, and they said the same thing. We built it with extra classrooms, right? The classrooms are starting to fill, and then all of a sudden the state decides, oh, you're gonna handle pre-K and everybody before pre-K, you know, or something, we're taking it out of DHS's hands and putting it into schools. Well, who knew that 10 years, like, nobody would assume that, so it's just, space, yes. The idea of how many ambulance, you know, I just, that is, as most people
I
say.
totally agree with you on that, because there's no way of looking ahead. However, this whole study was based on 20 years
Right.
out. So I'm just asking,
Absolutely.
if that's the case, are we looking at 20 years out, or are we just, because I agree with you, Mark, that we're gonna be looking at somewhere else. That, you know, we're a
Right.
62 square mile town, more or less. And, you know, that's a lot of territory to cover in just, even in just 2 places.
Don't want
So,
all our eggs in one
right.
basket.
right, we don't want all our eggs in one basket. I was just asking that question because everything else we've been looking at was saying 20 years out, which is very difficult to look at.
Right, we're 262 miles and our 2 life-saving areas are 5 miles apart.
Yeah.
Doesn't make
Well,
ton of sense
62
to me.
square miles, right, yeah,
Right, but
right,
you're
right,
right.
they're right, but they're right. Okay.
So the next plan is the proposed plan, so just really quick is identifying what we're working with existing, so there's a red square around the existing additions. All the parts and pieces that I mentioned before that we're reusing is basically in there. And then everything outside of that square is that 12,000 square feet that I mentioned earlier. So what we've provided, again, is a double loaded 2-bay apparatus for ambulance EMS service. The yellow space behind the existing apparatus is support space, so that's gonna provide tools or air cascades, EMS supply. There's also a biohazard for cleaning EMS equipment. And then all of the green is a clean zone. So I don't know if you guys know the red, yellows and greens, but red is dirty, yellow is warm, and then green is all clean. So what we try to do is separate the dirty from the clean. So what they do is basically go into the apparatus, go into the decon, to the showers, and then into the green area with their clean gear. So as you get out of the decon, we have a turnout gear adjacent to the apparatus, so they can get on their clean gear, get into the apparatus and out the door. Everything around that is either administration or common space from, multi-purpose training room. We have 6 bunks. We have a fitness room and a open concept, kitchen, dining, day room area, which is pretty close to the apparatus. So all these parts and pieces have been thought through to minimize, response time from those spaces to the trucks. We do have some outdoor space for exercise, so it's always good to have a multi-purpose workout area. So we have some indoor, we have some outdoor. We have an outdoor patio for barbecues, like downtime for the crew. In the front portion is all the administration. And then the main entrance is where we reutilize some of that storefront entry door and the glazing. So what we've done working with Steve and the chief was there's an office medical room that would be multi-purpose, so that if someone came off the road and walked in, there's service there so that, they don't have to go through the building. So
I would just say that the chief, in working on the program and the conceptual design, I don't know if you wanna address any of the situation that you're sharing space now in the current building, right? And how much of that space are you able to utilize or sharing that building? I don't know if you wanna share some thoughts about that, cause that partially played into this, right? So.
Yeah, just that, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, other than that we would be sharing fire and EMS services now in the same building, so all the medical supplies, all the medical stuff, having people come to the station, which they do now, they come to the station now when they have a medical issue sometimes. So EMS has to come to the station for that. Our crews go out there immediately. However, if it's serious, we need EMS to come as well, especially if there's a transport. So there is some a lot of combined stuff here.
The training room, I guess we should.
yeah, so a few things that the existing substation didn't have is bunk space or adequate bunk space. So we've worked out with the chief the amount of bunks so that it's projected to the future. We've also talked about using the training room for cots or whatever for, winter service. It all depends on the growth of the building, but we've accommodated what is needed for the next 10 to 20 years. The training room is multi-purpose, so it's a meeting space, it's training space. It could be cots for DPW for, but any questions on the plan so far?
Could I just ask a question? You've got 6 bunks and some people may say, my gosh, that's a lot. Is the vision, Steve and Mark, is it having 4 EMS personnel, or how did you look at that? So that with 6 bunks?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking at. Since we have 4 that are currently there,
Right.
we would at least have 4 out of this station. And we might have them split up with 2 for an ambulance at that station,
Yep.
2 at Central as well. And then possibly 2 more firefighters to be able to run another engine and or anything else out of the station.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, the bunk count is pretty typical for other towns that we've seen in the size, so 6 is a good number to have.
Especially with a very robust ambulance service.
Yep.
Some towns don't have that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
when they come out of the bunks, the alarm goes off and they come out of the bunks, they're sleeping. When they have to go down to the ambulances way on the end, right? Is
Yes,
that how that works?
Yeah.
So how do they get there?
so they go out the bunks, there's
If you-
a corridor coming down here,
Right.
and they go right through here. So there's an air chamber here that basically allows the dirty to the clean, but they basically go straight
Straight
through the apparatus.
There's no wall
So-
between the,
So this is all,
There's no wall between.
No, no, there's no
okay.
wall there.
I'm
No,
like,
no,
where's
no.
the door?
that red line was just to show you the
Okay.
difference between existing
This-
and new, that's a good question.
this
Yeah.
existing
Oh, no, we
wall,
were gonna make them go outside. I thought.
Well, that's what it looked like to me.
this existing wall
There's
is
no wall there.
removed. So
Yeah.
it's one big apparatus.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, well, that works so much better.
That,
Yes.
the existing building that's there is a pre-engineered steel building, so the skin is just not a skin. So in expanding it to the right, you would just remove the skin on that side, right?
Okay, alright, yeah, okay.
I see why you asked that question. No, there's
Right, because I'm looking, I'm like.
there's no wall there.
I see nothing.
That's a good question.
One other thing that we would have to upgrade is the sprinkler system, cause currently there is not one in the building, so hence the 30,000 gallon cistern, so. The next sheet is some exterior elevations and some perspectives. Wanted to give you guys an idea of how this building could look. What we wanted to do is try to blend it into the Wells architecture, but also tie it into the substation as well. So I think there's a good mix of, the front is really kind of administration common space. And then you have the apparatus, which is the pre-engineered building. So when we go to add the double bays for the EMS, that would be a continuation of a pre-engineered building. The front portion could be either conventionally framed, it could be manufactured. We could look at that once we get to that level. Cause again, it's all based on pricing, so we would try to get the best price on either method. So on the top is really the front elevation. We have a covered entrance, entering to a vestibule, then you go through the building. To the left is all the administration, and then to the right is the apparatus.
You get the baby box, is that if somebody needs to surrender a child?
Yep, so we did make accommodations for that. So
What's that look like on the outside? Is it like
we haven't got that far yet.
Okay.
We need to probably develop it a little more. We don't know what the pass-through is. I was almost thinking you could probably go into the vestibule.
It's shown in the vestibule, if
And
you go
then-
back, it's shown there, but again, this is a conceptual design, but the vestibule theoretically will be open 24/7, just the vestibule. But beyond that point, you couldn't go into the building unless you were buzzed in.
okay, that makes
It's
sense.
no different than you do a police station, you don't lock your vestibule down tight. You can walk in, but beyond the vestibule, you have to be let in, especially after hours, there'll be an intercom, there'll be a buzzer. But the baby box is actually directly off the lobby. I mean, the vestibule.
Oh, I see, okay.
You see that? Yeah, on the right side, yes.
So some of the exterior materials that we were thinking was a clapboard siding and then a stone base. So we've got prices for that we can show you guys, but we feel that kind of ties into the community, and then also ties into the building. I always try to take the opportunity to splash some red on a building, on a fire, so
Yes.
you don't get to do that on every building, but we do on fire departments, so why not use the opportunity?
And there's more views on the next sheet as well. I think the nice thing that this does as well is provide a little more residential feel to the street, to the road, with sort of less industrial materials, which has a smaller scale, and a big box, which is the apparatus bases behind it. But
Kinda-
right now, when
yeah.
you see it, you see the big box, right? So,
It softens the elevation.
yes.
It's aesthetically, it's quite nice.
Yeah. The next sheet is, again, we wanted to try to show you all around the building, so the top left is showing some overhead doors to the fitness room. What we like to try to do is an, indoor, outdoor type, situation, so if they are working out, they could open those doors up for natural ventilation. They could progress outside to do any sort of training. And then in the front, we have a few doors for means of egress. Pretty straightforward. Any questions on the elevations or exterior? So the last sheet is primarily estimating, and we worked with our estimator. He's done this plenty of times, very knowledgeable about these types of projects. So the front portion of the building, we were stick framing, so it's either gonna be wood or metal stud. And total building construction is $6 million.
That's renovation and new construction combined.
Yep.
Total.
So, yeah, roughly, again, renovation is just shy of 5, and then we got about 10,000 of addition. Site development is 705,000, and primarily it's the cistern, the septic. If we didn't have to do those, then we would be probably half of that. But because we have to, again, it is what it is. And then we also included soft costs, which includes furniture, A&E fees, survey, geotech, emergency generator, exterior signage, security, IT, phone access. What we try to do is give you guys an all-in cost as close as possible. It doesn't include everything where we don't provide like low voltage type cameras and card readers and all that. That's typically something that the town would take care of. But this is about as close as an all-in price as we can get.
Well, this phase anyway.
For this
It's the
phase.
conceptual phase.
Yep.
And also the contingency, it doesn't include, I don't know if you wanna cover that, but we carry a contingency of 10%, so.
Some of the things that we didn't include, cause it's hard to put a number together, is temporary facilities. Can we work around this? Yeah, maybe, but it would be a lot easier to, probably have temporary facilities so that a contractor can start and finish. But again, as we develop the process, we could work on those means.
That's operationally, that's really up to the chief, the deputy chief and the chief, because theoretically, we're not touching the apron, we're leaving the exit. Excuse me, the access drive in place, but then when rubber hits the road on this project, there has to be conversations with a general contractor about how he's gonna stage, where he's gonna come in to build that front piece, how he's gonna do the side piece, he has to change. There'll be a time when there'll be no septic, for example, cause they have to move it, right? So there's logistical things yeah, John is right, the only thing that we didn't take into account, because it's hard to put a number on, we had some conversations with Mike about this, is, let's say it takes 9 months to do this project, where are they gonna potentially go for a part of that, right?
So this estimate was budgeted for mid-2026. The reason why we did that is because of the process of the hospital, and I don't know if we wanna get into the details of it, but what we wanted to do is try to get you guys a number that would be realistic to construction. And then if it went beyond that time, there's an escalation of 5%. So.
Well, we're estimating 5%, I mean, nobody's a crystal ball, but it's safe to say that the numbers have come down since 2023 to 7, 8, then to like 6, and this last year's, it's just probably, it's really about 1.5 a quarter. So it's in that 5 to 6%, depending on labor and material availability, so.
So I hope we gave you guys a great overall, description of the project. We've utilized every part and piece of the existing building as much as possible to reduce costs. Working on the site, we've maximized the building as much as possible, working around the setbacks from the front to the sides. So it's kind of how it needs to be because of the setbacks and the configuration of the building and all of that.
The one thing that also excluded was a traffic signal, but I don't know, those can be quite expensive on the road, but I don't know if you have one right now or not. So a traffic signal that would activate to stop traffic on the road, when an emergency goes off and the trucks are pulling out or the ambulance is pulling out. There's a cost to that. I think your DPW folks probably have a good idea of that. We've seen those range anywhere from $300,000-400,000 up to $500,000-600,000, depending on who owns the road. Is a state road, is a local road, who owns the road. Usually when the state owns it, it's more expensive. The process is more extensive. But that's up to your discretion if you put that in. You don't have to put that in, but some of our clients do put that in for fire. So.
So any questions?
I have a question for the chief. What's the size of the training facilities at the main station?
I'd say a little narrower to this room, and I don't know the footage, but a little narrower to this room, and probably the same.
So when you do a training session now, is it packed?
It can be, if we have other departments coming, if we're doing something regional. But we're also sharing that with PD, that's a PD unit as well, and they use it a lot as well, and they use it from other communities as well, so. It can sometimes be interference with trying to schedule trainings.
And WEMS isn't a part of it right now.
And WEMS is
Yeah, it's
not
not a part
of it, and they might come on occasion when we have a medical class, and they have actually medical classes. You can utilize it when there's open space to do so. But when they do the actual physical part of the training, they'll go out in the bays and have the dummies out there, the CPR, all those things. We'll try to do that outside too.
Well, theoretically, you wanna do that in a clean, I mean, the apparatus bays are a red zone.
Yep.
So you don't wanna be doing it there, right? So, but the point I was trying to point out was that now you'll be sharing living quarters with WEMS, and WEMS has their own people, and you have your own training. And combined, it's quite a few people when you combine the fire and WEMS, right? So, that was the point I was trying to make.
So related to that question is, going forward, what do you think the intent is for the existing training space?
Well, the training space would be used specifically for training. It would also, and this is something that I've thought about, it should be either a primary or a backup EOC as well, because that is a requirement in a community, because if something were to happen at the police station, fire station, that's the EOC there, that's also, so that's something that is supposed to be a secondary / dispatch center offset or EOC center. So that would double as that, just like the training center does now. It would be utilized, it can also be utilized for town meetings and things like that as well.
What's EOC stand for?
Emergency
Operating center.
Okay.
So a lot of communities that we work in, the EOC is located in 3 different potential places. One is in a town hall, okay? Secondarily, it might be in a combined public safety building or in the police. In some cases, it's in a fire. It depends who's holding the football, so to speak, right? Wherever that is, there usually tends to be a backup console or two at another location. So let's say the EOC was at the police department in the community. I understand yours is combined, we get that. There usually might be a backup situation. That's what happened in Lebanon, for example. They have backup consoles there. The thing about an EOC, it should be it needs to be in a category 4 IBC structured building, which this would be, right? And the way that area is designed in that plan, right behind you, it's self-sufficient. It's got a bathroom, it's got a kitchenette, everything's there, so it could function independently as a backup EOC, and that was the way conceptually that it was thought of. And you could have a console in one of the big storage rooms and just wheel it out, right? Does that make sense?
Part of the reason I asked the question is we're also looking at facility study for here. And that's going to include a new larger room to serve this function. Can any of that be piggybacked?
Well, EOC, to have a real EOC, you really need to, it's a mission critical facility, like fire, EMS, and police.
Right,
In hospitals, right?
A few seconds ago, you said your backup is a lot of times at town hall.
Which is not okay unless the building's really designed to be structurally, correct. So I was gonna make that point that a new town hall, well, you would not construct it that IBC category 4. It'd be a category 3 or even a 2 to save money. So, and you wouldn't design just a piece of it within that building, it doesn't work like that.
What's an IBC for?
In National Building Code, category 4 structural, which is a hardened facility that is applicable to police, fire, hospitals, first responder facilities.
But your training space has to be that category?
Well, if it's gonna be an EOC, yes,
Yes.
so risk category 4 is basically for earthquake, hurricanes. You guys are on a coastal area, which even raises it even
Nor'easters.
more. It needs to withstand those type of
Yeah.
conditions.
It's a hardened structural,
What does that
Design.
mean though? What's the difference in construction?
It's,
Like a
it's,
bomb shelter.
it's, has more lateral bracing than any
Yeah.
typical building, has.
and you could do, I mean, if you look at the proposed addition, the 1-story lower piece, that could be stick built and be category 4, it could be done with wood framing, it could be done with metal framing. It doesn't have to be heavy duty steel, but in the apparatus bays and whatever, that's the case. But all we're trying to say, and he picked up on it, was that you wouldn't necessarily put an EOC into a non-category 4 building like a town hall building. Especially if you're getting any federal funds for it, which a lot of our communities get federal funds for, either local or regional EOCs,
What are the space requirements for an EOC?
It's dependent on the town, how
Yeah.
many people you're gonna have, so if you usually have a lot of, like each department head might show up if the entire town were to be shut down by a massive storm or devastation, so you might have finance there, you might have the DPW there, fire, police.
Yep.
All department heads working together in an EOC, and that depends on how many personnel you have that can accommodate that. Even council for themselves, if you guys were to be there, that's also part of that. And it's a secure place in case there was something else going on. So
One thing I've seen that's kind of successful, and it's kind of what you're talking about, Jim, is trying to think about space. If you look at the town hall concept that we saw earlier, that may be an area where we have people who have evacuated and we shelter, but typically you don't wanna put those evacuees at a command center at the EOC. You keep those separate. And so you have the think tank that's working, all of you and all the department heads and everything, if we're under that type of situation. And those who are seeking shelter could be housed here with proper monitoring.
Well, that was informative. Learned a lot.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, as we look at this, and I understand in the future, we're gonna have to sit down, there's a lot more on this, and prioritize what we're
Sure.
trying to accomplish here. Chief, I guess my question for you is, and you know what, you've heard me harp on this before, especially earlier, we're gonna house another group of firemen at this station. Then again, in my opinion, we are leaving a giant portion of our town still not as protected as it should be, like, so in other words, Tatnick area. We're moving everything within 2 miles of each other. Right?
That is-
By
we
putting the
wouldn't be
fire
moving-
department there, if
just
we
add,
just looked
yes.
at EMS
Yep.
at this station and then looked elsewhere, which I know is a cost, I'm just saying, I'm apprehensive in that part of the plan. I'm putting firemen in the same spot as the EMS and using a 2-mile route. I mean, one of the reasons we moved off from the land that we had purchased off of Meeting House was why we're putting another fire station within 4 miles of the police station, and then we were gonna just use this. You can go back and watch.
Yeah, understood.
This was supposed to be a storage unit basically for the firemen. When we
It was a
built that
truck
station,
barn.
not that far long ago, we had said to the people, we're building this as a storage place for our fire trucks.
Yeah.
We would look at us, and Carl Eckstead sitting in this very chair kept saying, you watch, they're gonna wanna put firemen in there. And I get that, but the point was, we're 2 miles from the station. Right, I'm roughly from another station, putting more firefighters in a building. Now, it's great for that back, Bald Hill Road, Quarry Road, those areas. It is a great station for them, and I'm not, but we're leaving a whole section of town a little more vulnerable by, which it is today, you know what I mean? I'm not saying, but in my mind, are we better off looking at something south of us right now? South a little bit.
So if you were to, if the town wanted to do a fire department, fire station location study / fire EMS to reduce the amount of response time, sure, there would be other locations. It might actually be one or two in the west, in the south, and then one in the north, etc. One of the reasons that we did this was because we already have an existing building, and I think that was the primary reason to save money in that respect. And there is a big savings in time. When I say big, it's pretty good size. We actually had one of our brush fires happened out on the way to North Berwick, on the North Berwick Road, and our guys, it was almost on the North Berwick line, and our guys were able to get there quicker than the other engine at the station. So there is some reduction in time. There is some improvement in that. But yes, if you wanted to do a strategic location study to determine where the best places are, this might not be that location. However, I don't think that this is going to harm the town in any way either.
No.
So just a thought.
Well, and really honestly, in my opinion, our primary station should have been right here. Geographically, this is located dead center in the middle of
Right,
Wells.
exactly,
Well, no,
yeah.
We shouldn't have put down at the Wells corner, we should have split those two. Those should have been split, that should have been police, and then fire should have been moved up back. I like this location, but I am with you guys that if we did like a small substation, one down closer to the
Right.
Tatnick Route 1 area, but even driving without all the, fancy lights on from this area, you can get to Wells, anywhere in Wells, Agunquit, anywhere fairly quick.
Mhm.
It goes by pretty fast, so.
You're just a short distance from going down to 9B, not that far from Tatnick, really, if you,
Yeah.
on a straight shot over.
Plus, I think there's plenty of real estate out on the actual Tatnick Road, but on that Route 1 corridor down there, I think the town would be hard pressed to find a good deal on a piece of land big enough to accommodate something as large as this right here.
Well, we wouldn't need anything that big if we were having another substation.
Well, if you were trying to accommodate the ambulances
Oh,
and
yeah.
extra firefighters, you'd kinda have to have it. I mean, it looks big and grandiose, but when you actually break it down, and like I was looking at the training room too, Jim, because I had the same thought. I think that is that a space that's redundant? But then when they
Right.
explain the EOC, that secondary need makes sense, but when you look, there's only 6 bunks in there. And I say only, I understand, and again, in that theme of thinking down the road and not just tomorrow, you're gonna use those, there's no doubt about that.
Well, then would you,
Yeah, what's that?
so just throw everybody right through the roof? Well, would you then look at, why not just move EMS to the Wells Fire Station and build a whole new fire station with this fire station rather
You
than?
kind of are, that's a pretty nice station. I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying to you, is could you house the other fire trucks, make that just completely a fire station?
how many square feet, I mean, your building looks huge, but it's mostly garage.
Yeah,
How many
goes to-
square feet do you have in the current fire station for like quarters and
I
everything?
don't have the measurements there. We are about 30% of the total building.
You don't remember what that space was, I assume you looked.
I like to look it up, I don't know, but
We could get you the square footage.
we can get that. The chief did tell us that, what you just said it, that the majority of that building is really used by PD. And that includes shared spaces as well, right? Because,
Well, we were really building, at the time, we were building a new police station, the police station was terrible, we really were building a new police station and it just happened, fire was attached to it.
Right.
I do think if you are going to do
Understood.
separate locations, I do think EMS should always be with fire. I think it makes sense because EMS and fire are both time sensitive to get to the locations, so you always wanna try to get both of those a certain distance away. And ISO has a fire minimum standard for distance and time. And EMS, it falls under NFPA, same thing. They have their own minimum standard time frame. So
for response time.
it makes sense to keep them together wherever they are, but I'm not saying that it has to be that way.
Well, I think right now you have an ambulance down there, sometime,
have an
you don't have
ambulance.
you don't have an ambulance down there, okay, so.
Ambulance is up at
But
the
if
other
we
one.
moved EMS, everything up there, then, I mean, right now, you're not that far away from WEMS and the ambulance service, and you can kind of work together better, but if we move it up there, there should be one someplace
I think
near
they
you.
said they were gonna
Well,
do
they
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know,
one
you
there.
said that.
Yep, and
I
two
know,
there.
but you
Yep,
don't do
yep,
that, no, I'm
yep.
saying, so I think in that case, yes, you would share it on there.
Yep.
And so I think, I don't know, I think this looks a lot more than what we thought we would, if we were gonna be just moving WEMS here, which is all I think we should be moving here, is WEMS.
But then following Tim's train of thought, we're not really taking care of the issue of having something farther south to protect the Tatnick area. So, my question is, would we build 2 bays here and then find that we have to do a couple of bays someplace else?
Yeah.
Or would we build, one additional bay here and then do another location which shortens distances and all that sort of thing?
Right.
I think the only reason I thought the way I was thinking was because I guess I wasn't expecting us to be. I thought we were coming to, and no, this is not anyone's fault. In my mind, I thought we were coming to look at where we're putting WEMS, and now we're adding fire to WEMS. It's like a fire station, which I didn't anticipate.
Right.
And
Especially since, I agree.
that's not, nobody was being dishonest, I'm not, it's just not what I thought was gonna happen, I feel like we really, on our priority list, with the situation at where, the hospital, whatever you wanna call it, the worrisome I have is we need WEMS somewhere. I really believe that, is going to be the case, we need to move WEMS. And that's gotta be priority 1 in the scheme of things. I mean, so if we build this fire station, does that mean we've already said committed to hiring 4 new firefighters? I mean, what, we're now, we're 9 million, now we're another.
Yeah.
Where are we in this? And if we need them, I guess that's what what we have to do, but it just, I don't know, I wasn't quite expecting the extensive look of that one, the green, I guess, is what I'm saying. I was expecting the red with
Right.
some.
And I totally agree with you, especially since we know that could happen anytime.
Right.
So we really need to be looking at something maybe we could build a little faster and be, and looking, I agree, I thought it was gonna be WEMS. I assumed that the fire department's here and they would have daytime people, but for the bunks, this is way,
And not
Well,
addressing the area
From
in
a
the
personal
south is still a
efficiency
problem.
standard, though, you wanna have cross-staffing, because it helps EMS and it helps fire to be able to cross-staff as well, so that's one of the other things that comes into play. Fire definitely can use that reduction in time, and distance traveling. It is 3.7 miles distant from each other. And that being said, that was the thought process, it helps for the cross-staffing. But again, I understand your point of view.
So keep in mind, this isn't a manned station, so what we're trying to do is make it a manned station, hence the bunks and
No,
all of the support space
I
that goes to it.
expected bunks, I'm not saying.
Yeah,
It was when we started adding the fire, but, the idea of the fire department being manned there is when it, I'm not saying I'm sitting here saying it's totally against that, but I didn't expect that to where we were headed with that, I guess, and I
Well, you
heard
could-
about it today, I'm not saying that.
I understood, you can make the decision to take some of the bunks out and make that training room smaller, et cetera. You would need minimum of 3 bunks for EMS? Four, so you can only cut minimum, right? So you can only cut 2, so it's up to you,
The bunk part is not as,
obviously,
to me, the bunk space is, I mean, to cut 2, why not just have it? I'm not, but looking at like some of the training centers, the conference room, the idea behind all that, while it's great, and I'd love to have it, I'm starting to really get nervous as budgets come up. I'm really starting to become a real, this place needs to do something. We're the 2 emergencies to me is this place and EMS, right? We're in a almost like emergency situation with these 2 buildings, right? Never mind the fact that we know, like in our budget process, we know last year healthcare 14, we're probably seeing another 14, a huge increase in healthcare coming up. We have a ton of budgetary issues and people want more and more, which I get, I'm not, but the budget season's starting to worry me, and then also we're gonna throw, hey, here's 9 million here, here's 20 million here, here's.
I know, and that last time I talked about sleepless nights.
Right.
Well, when we had talked about it before, we had said that if anything, we could put some, housing separately from that, and that would save us from some of the costs of the water. But I mean, but this piece right here, that we need this, the 3 ambulance, that piece is definitely one thing that we'd be looking at. All this other stuff, I'm thinking that we don't quite need all that stuff, it seems a little,
Yeah, I think probably the best place we're at is this is looking at 2045. Now we peel back and
Back.
say, what do we need over the next 5 or 10, and how can we build it so it's expandable in the future as
That's what I would.
money
right,
allows.
right. And five
We'd be
years
remiss
is
if we didn't
emergency,
present.
right.
Here's what it could look like, now let's peel it back.
I want this, like,
Sure.
I'm not criticizing anyone
I like it
on
too.
giving me this, I wanna see this, but at the same time,
Oh, yeah, but
we
we've
have
got
to
a tax
think
burden that we have
fiscally a
to be
little bit here
cognizant
too,
of.
somewhat.
So Chief, how does it work currently where they don't have the bunks? When you get a call, how does the staff has to get there, right?
Nobody uses the station, we have call firefighters come in or off-duty personnel when all the other trucks are being used. They'll come to that station to pick up an engine to go to either the fire, or if we're just dealing with multiple calls, they'll take the engine to go to another call.
Okay, I see.
So they just drive there and use the facility.
Another question I had, Chief, you stated that fire and EMS should be staffed together. We're 2 separate entities now, we don't know where we are yet, right? So we're 2 separate entities. We're not staffed together right now, we don't have cross-staffing at this time. This has worked for 50 years, 60 years?
We're not arguing that at all, it's just a
Right.
matter of that
I-
we can help them,
it's
they can
better,
help
but-
us. Yep.
It might not work that way. I think we have to have a major discussion whether that's what we really need is cross-staffing, but we haven't done it ever, had cross-staffing, so.
Right.
We're many years, I know in 1983, I was a fireman down at Wells Beach, we'd have cross-staff, we had so I don't know how many years it's been without cross-staffing. I get it works in other communities, but it's worked for us so far. So I'm, do we have to have it? The answer is no, right? That we have to have it?
Do you usually send an engine and an ambulance together?
It all depends on the nature of the call.
Okay.
We have calls that are medical calls, and you might wanna chime in, I don't wanna talk about what your stuff, but they segregate them into Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Alpha being very, very simple, a small injury, a sprained ankle, all the way up to Echo that's life-threatening. We go on all Delta and Echo level calls, all of them, to help with them. And we go to Charlie level calls that are strokes.
Mhm.
Or any call that requires extra help with lifting a patient because of size. Or if the town is if they're already tied up with other calls, then we'll go to those other Alpha Bravo level calls.
Okay.
So we're only going to select calls that are more significant and need more manpower.
That's good to know.
What's involved with what you call with location study or whatever you call that? What's involved with that?
Location studies are basically, they're done to determine where is the majority of the calls the community has, number one. And number two, how far and how long does it take to get there? And there are minimum standards, they want you to be able to get there in a timely fashion. If your house is on fire, waiting 2 to 3 minutes, even though that's a nice time frame, it's just watching your house burn. That's a long time to wait. So they're looking at, 5-minute response times most of the time. Or they're looking at, same thing with EMS, what is the EMS time frame response for cardiac arrest? So things like that. So what they'll try to do is determine where is the majority of your calls and where is the best allocation. Obviously, you wanna get the entire town, that's not possible and not typically feasible. So you try to get the biggest bang for your buck at the locations that make the most sense.
So a lot of communities, and you might have this, I don't know, you might have a GIS heat mapping that shows the responses and the
We have
type of responses. There you go. So the way it works is, can I use your Board? So if this is a town, I'm just gonna draw a box, so don't be upset. Okay, so this is a box.
Make it a peach, it would be us.
Okay. There you go. Alright, so in a heat mapping situation, you would do some heat mapping on responses times that the chief and I should call you deputy chief, I don't know what to.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve.
So you want some overlap, right? This may be an uncovered area perhaps. And then there's not multicolored markers, but you might get your heat mapping, so you might find out that a lot of the calls are in this area, right? So then if you have no coverage here, you might think of putting just a storage facility, which is what the idea was of this original building, was really a truck barn to park apparatus or an ambulance or whatever. So if you hit the GIS, the trick about the GIS, and this is response radius, right? That meets ISO and NFPA, right? But the thing where the science comes in, which gets hard to do, is as your population grows in one direction. Most communities that we work in, John and I, population trends tend to be moving in a certain direction, whether it's additional business, industry, or residential. That isn't there now, but it will be in 5 or 10 years, because you're seeing that development happening. And if this is in this role play we're doing here, if this area is not covered, right, you need to put something there. You know what I'm saying? So you might have a station here, you might have a station here, you may not have a station here. So you got to think about we put something there. That's a science of it in a nutshell, right?
I mean, if you looked at a heat map of wells, we can tell you that.
I remember those big circle maps, like
Yeah.
Chief Moore always brought them in every.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Route 1 is typically very, very populated
Right.
with calls. It's very much east of the turnpike is the majority of our calls. And then there are some pockets elsewhere.
yeah, so I like to make decisions with all the available information.
Yep.
Because otherwise, you have pardon the analogy, you have a fire here and you go to it, and then, and in terms of a facility, you need to do the facility, so you do it, and then you find out, well, we really should have in our planning considered an alternate location.
That's one of the reasons for studies. If you wanted to do that, it's very time consuming, but it can be done. I did one, it took me 6 months to do one, and it was specifically for executive fire officer. It was a published document. It's very labor intensive, but it can be done, and organizations do that all the time.
How are the current response rates over in the Tatnick area?
We have some response rates that could be as high as 10 to 12 minutes,
Which is 4 times longer.
which is, yeah,
4 times longer than it should be. Roughly, right?
correct.
Yeah, 4 times longer.
What are they at Chicks Crossing Road?
I
I
think
have
that,
to look, but it's probably in the area of
I mean,
7 minutes.
let's face it, it was the reason we had all those, in the old days, when we had the volunteer stations
Right.
at Branch and High Pine and Wells Beach and Wells
I like
Corner.
districts.
Right, we had little districts where response time was a lot quicker. The one place we didn't have response time was the Tatnick area, even during those days, you know what I mean?
There wasn't much built up.
No, there wasn't a lot of places up there too, so we kind of ignored it a little bit, but that was a long time ago, and we don't have those stations anymore, but that was the whole
Right.
purpose of having those volunteer stations everywhere in town.
but I think if I just add one more thing on this concept is that what John and I found is that most of the chiefs that we work with on their command staff, they pretty much know how much time it takes to get to various areas. So I'm thinking of one specific one that we worked on. So they knew that it wasn't it was in New Hampshire, but they knew very well that area would take about 3.5 to 4 times longer to respond, right? So they didn't need to do a heat mapping thing because they knew it, right? And they also knew which areas they can get to within 2 to 3 minutes, right, from deployment.
Right, I'm not
So-
saying we need to do a heat map.
Well, I'm not
What we
saying you
need-
should do it.
right, what we need to
Yeah.
do is right now is prioritize and figure out what we have to do here. I mean, you already know how long it's gonna take you to get to Jigs Crossing Road or to Tacnic Road. You've got that down in your mind, I know that.
Yep.
So we know that, so we have to sit down as a group with another workshop and start prioritizing where we are on this stuff, in my mind, that's my mind right now.
Our problem is that we have a substation that we've already built over there, so I
Right.
think that that's, we gotta look at what we already have. Especially if we need to do something fairly quickly, and I do think that it's true, we'll know in what, 10 months to a year and a half?
Yeah, the current lease notification is, Steve, check me on this, but should be by December 1 for a March date. We have not heard, have you, anything, so we are making the assumption that we are good till next year this time, and we could get notice then, I say we being WEMS, could get notice then that as of March of '27,
Yeah.
you're out.
Right.
And so time is really important on
Time is
having a
really,
plan.
right, and point, so, honestly, I mean, this would be great, for a plan that if we had the time and we had the inclination to spend that much money. And, but I think for all practical purposes, we really need to look at the substation and what we can do that we can get done within maybe a year and a half. And then at that point, and we're still gonna be putting WEMS in the center of the town. And we'll still have the fire department up there, which I do believe would cut some time, certainly would cut time to go to Jigs Crossing. And it would certainly cut time because you can go right up Route 9 that way. So there would still be those benefits that we can use from that, but I think right now we need to look at the housing of the WEMS and the putting the ambulances there.
I'm sure engineers love this, but
Yeah,
what if we took and repurposed this big training area right here into some essential office space that would accommodate WEMS, and then trimmed all of this off right here?
Yeah, we could look at a reconfiguration, we did with the programming and work that we did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's great, I love the plan.
But I mean, we could look at that, it wouldn't take a ton of effort to do that, it would basically move everything up, John, and whether you leave 4 bunks, 6 bunks, and Mike could tell us, you guys can decide and tell us what you wanna do.
So conceptually though, you'd have the ambulances there that are shown, the 3 fire apparatus that are currently stored there, and then looking at the 6 bunks and the
Right.
space we're
And
talking
the
about.
basic, the
Yeah, your
basic
fitness
thing.
room,
Uh-huh.
your day room, so you'd have your living quarters, which is a big problem because I don't know if you guys have been down to that substation to see the little offices they built in there, but they're very small. And you could just keep the footprint of the training area and like Steve's office there, the director's office, use that footprint to put a director's office in, and if there was anything else out there, maybe an entryway with, I like the idea of the baby box. You had something like that, you could use some of that space for right there.
I have one other question. The 3 fire department, the 3 fire things, would they fit on if we put in addition to put them over there? And put the ambulances in the center where they'd be closer to the bunks and closer to the kitchen?
I think you'd have to change it.
I mean, why,
I think
well, you're
tough,
building
John,
this,
too.
why would you not, you would
there's
have,
some-
I'm only
bring
asking.
that up.
Well, so the ambulances are double loaded, so
Yeah.
there's a certain depth that's required.
Oh,
So
so you
the,
need that whole, okay, that's
so the
good.
existing
Yeah.
apparatus is not deep enough to do a double loaded ambulance. So,
That little box you see behind each one is a stretcher. So you need to be able to unload the stretcher, right?
Okay, gotcha.
That's what that little box is, right?
we
Okay,
could,
right, that's
again,
right.
No, it's
we
fine.
we can move them around, but we could get one ambulance in the existing apparatus, but
No, that's okay, you answered my question.
Yep.
I thought I was remembering, isn't there some kind of system also set up for the fire truck? I just remember, maybe I'm totally wrong, but.
Plymouth vent for
Plymouth?
venting.
The exhaust Plymouth vents, yeah.
And they would probably add those for those ambulances too, cause.
Okay.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
there would have to be. for
yeah,
that,
so everything basically stays the same in the existing.
Okay,
We add everything that's required in for the EMS, so Plymouth vent,
okay.
Don't get
Yeah,
me wrong,
drainage.
we can still move an ambulance to one of those other bays, if, let's say there was some
Right.
sort of, there's nothing wrong with that, we just wouldn't have them one behind the other. If for some reason we needed to do that for some reason, we can do that.
Well, this is perfect though, quite honestly, I'm thrilled at the conversation of here is utopia. And here's what you as a board would like to see us do now to support getting something more efficiently and more
Because
quickly.
we have to prioritize.
And-
Absolutely.
Well,
I
yeah,
know you weren't here, but if you remember, I think our first price tag on that building was 26 or And we got it down to 14.
It was 19,000 and another 5 million for the library.
24.
24.
Yeah, so, you know, we did,
Well, I
we
agree,
started with grand and then went down.
I agree with Tim, I'm concerned about the budget moving forward, and I wanna make sure, but this is a critical need from what I've seen transpiring, I mean, it's not like the issues with the, well, I'll say, the concerns, not issues, the concerns with the EMS. It's not like this has just popped up within the last year, this has been something that, I mean, just about since I first got elected, we've been talking about this. So 6 years, and it's going to come to a head sooner rather than later, so there is some sense of urgency on this, I think.
Right. I think to be impractical and bring timely, those are the two things, practical and timely. Timely is actually as timely and practical.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think you've got an idea of where to head now.
Yeah, I think we have to have our conversations more about it, but yes, I think maybe.
So from what I'm
Yes.
hearing from the board is getting rid of the training room and compressing the administration into that area so that
Right.
we can reduce the square footage
Yep.
is what you guys are suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know their needs, but I'm like, I see the lieutenant's office here and things like that, and then, all these offices, the command conference room and all that stuff, and again, would it be great to have, sure, but from a budgetary standpoint and a redundancy of space standpoint, could we use some of our existing facilities in the meantime, get what we need, which is to have a facility for our ambulance service right now, and then look at that stuff down the road when the need arises.
Yeah, I think the fire chief had to weigh in on, because everything you see here was based on programming work that we've done. So if they don't need a lieutenant at that station, then there's no need for that office. You don't have to have
Yeah, right.
a meeting room or whatever, that could be, I mean, we'll have to look at this because we have to confirm this not tonight, but after like the next couple of days or next week. But you could definitely cut some of that off. I think there's 3 ways to skin a cat. One, you proceed with this, which is more long-term looking, but we understand there's a budget issue and issues about other projects that are in your CIP. Number 2 is to cut it back the way we're talking about, which we gotta confirm exactly how we're cutting it, but cut it back. The third way to do it, future, the fit out of the interior is probably worth 45% of the 50% of the cost of doing a square foot of building, roughly, right? So you're taking that cost out. Rather than coming back later in 5 or 10 years, obviously escalation, inflation going up. All those 3 are valid approaches. The first one seems like it's maybe too much in the beginning. The second one, we could definitely look at reducing it. Absolutely, right?
One other thing to
Sure.
consider, and again, this is just talking out loud, is that we've talked to DPW, we went through DPW and their needs. Their needs are also having some sort of training room similar to this, so I don't know if there's some redundancy that we could use DPW and fire and EMS at this location, seeing that they're basically adjacent to each other. So there are some opportunities to utilize for DPW, EMS, fire. So it's something to think about.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cause DPW has a
Yeah,
need.
you're right, we were talking, that's the other training room I was trying to think of that
Correct.
we talked about before.
Well, it was a training room and a break room all at once. It wasn't just a training room, I believe, John. I believe it was.
No, it was again,
Training,
but
yeah.
it's a space
Yeah.
that could be utilized between multiple departments.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
I think it's better to have it than not. And where you guys have multiple needs through multiple departments, start utilizing where we can use some of these spaces for multiple organizations.
I gotta be honest, I get the idea that we wanna be careful about the budget, like that makes a ton of sense, but I'm worried, like I think that it wouldn't make it to this point in the plan if it didn't have a utility in it, if we didn't need it. And I don't wanna be in a position where we where we don't do enough now and then we have to come back later on and retrofit a lot of this stuff in.
That's where I think the suggestion of perhaps shelling out part of the space or develop a different timeline for 2 additions instead of all 1 addition, that sort of thing. I think we'd have to see those numbers.
I don't disagree with you, Avery, but the thing is that right now, I mean, I think that the taxpayers are gonna be very sensitive to any sort of budgetary increase in spending with what everybody's been seeing over the last couple of years, and we've managed to maintain that we still have, I believe, what is it, like York and Cumberland counties, the lowest tax rate?
Yeah, I can't attest to all of Cumberland, but certainly York County or something.
Yeah, so it's just something, I mean, we've seen like, there's some neighboring towns, that I mean, it was actually the news articles about how much their tax rates jumped, and there were people on fixed incomes that were going to have a hard time, because they're, even outside of this project, I'm sure there's a bridge failing somewhere that we don't know about, or a seawall failing that's gonna rear its ugly head, or, you know, the increase in the medical costs, which will ultimately go into our staff budget, and I don't know, I think that if this was stick built out front though, if you did have to build onto it where that need was later on, you could always revisit all of this, even if you didn't shell it out, you could still, it'd just be like doing an addition on your house, you could just add the
Right.
addition later on.
We could establish a phasing plan of this so that at least you have all the parts and pieces that are really needed for 10 to 20 years, but phase it out for the immediate need.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we could do, once we really understand what we might change, I mean, we don't have to decide on everything tonight, but once we understand, and we'll circle back with Mike, you know, we can do that, we could show that phasing,
I
if
think,
that's what you decide.
right, I think what needs to happen is a workshop again
And what we actually
on
want
us,
and
where we now have all these things and we look at it as a big picture item. You know, Avery, while I agree with you, and I've been willing to spend money on building stuff, but there's going to be a point, we only have to look at York and Kmart, who down their budgets all the time now, vote down their budget. So we're gonna be at a point here in this town where we've been very good to the town's been very good to all of us here, that there's going to be a breaking point in this thing, and I'm starting to get nervous,
And
and
based
I've
on.
never been
right.
nervous.
Yeah,
Based
cause
on
what if
that,
we get
right.
this plan and we go to budget and
Right,
they
and-
vote it down?
Right.
Right.
And we're stuck.
Honestly, based on that as a backup, is there a way to, again, to have it see how much we can afford for,
We can
Okay.
try to back into that.
yeah, no, because we did that before and we found out we were,
Right.
7 or 8 million, well, actually 10 million.
How long do they bond out stuff like this? What's your typical bond on a municipal building?
Or we can see $25 to $50 million, depending upon
No, I
what you're
mean,
looking at.
for terms, like how long, like
Oh, 30 years probably is a pretty normal term.
what's a pretty typical interest rate?
Right now, you're gonna be, well, I wish we could go back to where it was less than 1% not too many years ago, but right now you're gonna be in that, probably that 6, 4.5, 5 to 6.
Go to the high end and say 6.
But again, who knows what the feds are gonna continue to do
Yeah.
or stop doing, what they've been doing, and, you know.
There's supposed to be another drop in December, but I think it's gonna continue going down, but none of us here know exactly what.
What are we at, 654 per thousand for a mill rate?
646.
646.
Your phone.
Yeah.
But still, that's good, but the valuations are obviously much higher.
That's
No, it's good tax rate, it's
The tax rate's good.
that's a great consideration, John, because we've got a lot of these high ticket items.
Mhm.
And when you bond them out, the effect on the taxpayer is not as great as when you build them.
Well, to be honest with you, I sat here listening to all these things, I didn't expect anything but a bond. I really didn't think we were gonna
Yeah,
just
we're
throw it
not
into a
gonna
budget.
accept a bond.
Yes, I never thought anything other than a bond.
But we're
now.
still paying on the fire
Right,
department,
yes.
and
Right.
so we need to look at, and
What we have
there's
for any
one
debt
that-
retirement
we
coming
just
up.
retired a couple, right, or we?
Oh, yeah, we gotta look, we have to look at that retirement, then figure out what the monthly pay, or not look at exactly, obviously we can't
Within
do
3
that,
months
just
of that, so that's
extrapolate, figure
March.
out what we think the monthly payment would be,
27.
what the impact that'll be to the taxation every year, and what that'll actually look like dollar figure for the average homeowner, I think that would be
We
an
had,
important part.
we had a
And then-
guy that did that, I mean, we
Right.
consulted somebody and they came back and said, this is what your payments are gonna be, and at the time, it was even keeping it under the tax cap.
You
You know, we're also-
probably use the people that we
Yeah,
work for
right,
bonding.
Right, for
with.
bonding, and that's what it was that they came back and gave a general, just a general good idea to it.
And then your question is, do you go big and put everything in? Or do you go small with the anticipation of going out again? Which is not the best thing to do,
Well, no, it's
because
not
then
at
it
all.
doubles the payments.
But Well,
I think
no,
that's a discussion for.
that's a discussion
Yeah.
for us.
But it's all, these, I mean, it's good that we're talking about it now because we'll all go home, we'll think about it, and then when we have the conversation, we'll come.
And when we talked last time too, I think after you had agreed that after this presentation, you'd wanna come back again and say, what are your priorities? And it
Yeah.
sounds like WIMS is a
WIMS is
very high
Friends, town
priority.
hall, and
Well, we have to do that, I mean,
Right,
that's
that's
just-
your risk
Yeah,
right now.
that's
I'll say that as an objective fact,
Right.
we have to deal with WEMS, it's,
So Mike, if you don't mind, I was gonna
priority.
quickly go through a timeline because we're talking to the chief about that also. So assuming about what'd you guess, John, 9 months construction? 8 months, 9 months? So if you may be out in March of, let's go backwards, right, of 27. That's what we heard, correct? March of 27?
That's correct, that
Okay.
could be the.
I wanna make sure, so if you go back, now you're into, middle of next year in 26, it would take about 4 months to do a final design, the final design construction documents ready to go out for pricing. About 4 months, and I talked about, right, John? 4 months. And then you gotta allow about 2 months for procuring the project or bidding it, hiring somebody. 8 weeks, you're basically at that point, starting January of next year. And it wouldn't be serving you as your consultant without telling you that, because even if you started in January, regardless of whether it's a lesser scope or the same scope, whatever it is, you're pretty much gonna be putting the last paint touch up about the time these nice folks would be out of their current space. Does that make sense?
And I completely understand that, but
Yeah.
I'm not spending $9 million in
Cause the $9 million
on
is
January
gonna
without
go
having a
faster.
thought process on it. You know what I
No,
mean?
for sure.
I get that, but we didn't realize this was all gonna happen with WEMS. I mean, we've been thinking that it could, what I mean, we didn't.
Yeah.
Now we gotta, but we also have to be, we have a duty to this town to do the right thing by it, and
Absolutely.
I understand that, but we're gonna have to figure this out, and we understand we're under emergency with WEMS, I consider it.
Well, my statement was not to pressure anybody, I just wanted to bring that schedule, cause we haven't really talked about it,
well,
right?
setting and managing expectations.
Yeah, that's it. You guys have to do what you have to do for your town, absolutely, we respect that fully. If I was in your seats, I would feel the same way.
Yeah, but to me, there's a big difference if we ran into a situation and we had to play triage for a couple of months, there's a big difference between that and then having to play triage with no plan in place whatsoever, nothing underway. So, I think even that's a better
Knowing
case.
that we're at least working on the solution and we're gonna have it at some point.
Yeah, my biggest concern was to have something where WIMS gets notice and me and others haven't brought to you to say, we need to have a plan. And now at least we've got that kicked off.
Oh, yes.
And now you think about what that would look like for you and the taxpayers. And we all do.
food for thought.
Alright, thank you.
Okay,
So you guys got some big decisions, but
your attention anyway.
yeah. We're here to help out.
Yeah,
We can get you the square footage of the current fire department, just so that you guys know what it is.
That would be great.
As
a reference.
Yep,
what's gonna be unknown to us right now is how much of the space truly still is fire, is it? Or has it been sort of partially become PD, or is it still?
No, it was designated from the
We
beginning.
just share, the workout room.
Yes.
And obviously when we play the training.
Okay. That we could do, we'll make a couple of days, but hopefully this is helpful,
No,
it was.
so.
Thank you, it
I
was,
don't
yeah, it brought us to the table to think about it, really.
No, thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank
Be in touch.
Absolutely, no problem. Good conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
Very good conversation.
You know what you were getting yourself.
If we don't see you again, have a great holiday, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you, Merry Christmas.
Thank you
I
so
have a
much.
feling we'll be revising the plan over Christmas.
It'll be good.
That'll be fine.
We'll come back together as the board.
No problem.
Do we have to adjourn this?
No.
I can just see it.
When you're done, you're done. I think we just have to.
Thank you for listening in.
Thank you. We're done.